Another day, another Japanese novel. At this point, I might be emotionally dependent on post-war Japanese literature. Chat, am I cooked? 今日は太宰の本の話です. It's the setting sun. So this was my first Dazai novel and it was really good. Maybe almost as good as my Japanese. But hey, I'm only a beginner, right? So we listen and we don't judge. Honestly, I'm in love with his writing style. Like, why didn't someone tell me about him earlier? Well, maybe for a good reason. They didn't want to see me suffer. So it makes sense. Because the story is beautifully written. But just a heads up, it's not roses and sunshine. It's just despairing. Heavily. And if you want to feel miserable for a solid few weeks, yeah, read this book. So the setting sun takes place in post-war Japan, and it follows this once aristocratic family that is slowly falling into poverty and slipping out of the life they once knew. At the center of the story is the family itself. You have a mother who is clinging onto dignity and manners from a world that no longer exists. You have a son, Naoji, I think his name is, who is mentally struggling because of his experiences in the war. And then in the middle, you have Kazuko, who is just watching all of this unravel, and she's also struggling to find any meaning in her own life. And they're all bound together by their history and class, but emotionally they're all drifting apart from each other because the world that they were raised for doesn't exist anymore. And it's not that that world has disappeared, it's that there's nothing waiting for them on the other side. So the story is pretty much about this family struggle to survive and find meaning in this post-aristocratic world. Like they're forced to move houses from Tokyo to countryside where Kazuka has to do labor jobs in order to support her and her mother, who is also ill. Money becomes a constant issue and relationships start to, deteriorate over time. And Dazai here is not interested in dramatic events. He is interested in showing what it's like to live in a world where you no longer belong. And this is something that I really liked about his writing style. I love the way he writes about loss, but without any direction forward. And not many writers are able to explain this feeling, because usually when an old system collapses, something new fills that gap or void. But in this story, that's not really the case. And I think Dazai has done a wonderful job here portraying this feeling of hopelessness. In this world, the aristocracy is gone, the old moral order is gone, and yet there's nothing to replace those. And you see this especially in Kazuko's outlook on love and independence. Like she talks about wanting to live freely and reject old customs, but it doesn't really feel romantic in any way. And I like that Dazai here is not really romanticizing the past, but at the same time he's not pretending that the future is secure. And it's like everyone is stuck in the middle. They're unable to go back, they're unable to move forward, and that limbo zone, that middle, is where the despair of this novel lives. And I think that ties into the title of this book as well, The Setting Sun, because Japan is known as the land of the rising sun. So you kind of get an idea of what this book is going to be about. It's about decline and something slowly fading away. My main issue in this story was with the ending. I feel like it arrives a bit too quickly after such a slow build up. The biggest moment near the end is Naoji's death. I mean, it completely makes sense for his character, like his addiction, his bitterness, and his feeling of being completely out of place in this new post-war world. It's all there from the beginning, but the way it happens feels very abrupt. Like we move pretty quickly from his inner struggle to his final letter, and then he's just gone. And then there's Kazuko's ending as well. Her final decision, like choosing to have Uehara's kid and framing it as something like a personal revolution, feels quite odd and unnatural to the story. Up until that point, her choices feel quite fragile and hesitant, but then at the end, it feels completely opposite. And I completely understand why Dazai wrote it this way, because it's not meant to be hopeful or comforting. It's action taken in the absence of any clear values. A choice made simply because not doing anything is not an option anymore. So, yeah, I completely understand why he wrote the ending the way he did, but it just felt a bit rushed. But overall, The Setting Sun is beautifully written. It's deeply poetic and reflective. And after reading this, I ended up reading No Longer Human by Dazai as well because I just really liked his writing style. And if you want to get into Dazai's novels, I'd probably recommend starting with The Setting Sun. No Longer Human is really good, but I think this is an easier read. So yeah, I ended up giving this 4 stars, even if the ending didn't land completely for me. I still thought it was a really good book and I enjoyed reading it. Read it in like 2 days. It's quite short as well. But just a heads up, this book will make you feel depressed for a few days. Like, that is guaranteed. Like, the best way I can describe the feeling of reading this book is like, when you eat spicy food and you know you shouldn't because it's going to hurt your stomach the next day, but still you decide to have it anyways. Like, this is kind of like that. Like, you're going to be sad and depressed for a few days, but it's just so good. Just read it. That's all for the vid today, and if you've read this book, I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments section. And yeah, see you in the next one. God bless.